Yeah, first weekend back on the World Cup circuit. It was interesting. It was an interesting weekend. It wasn't quite as the weekend I'd hoped for. I ended up 33rd, I think. I didn't do the sprint. It was just doing the distance races. Sunday was a 15k skate pursuit, so he started the time back the winner from the day before. But it was pretty cold, so the Norwegians decided not to start, and Ivo Niskanen, who was leading, decided not to start as well. And so the organisers didn't know this, so there was absolute chaos at the start because they tried to delay the start to wait for the Norwegians and Niskanen, and we were all there like lined up waiting to go when it was minus 20 centigrade. We were all freezing, running around trying to keep warm before the start. And I think they realised the Norwegians weren't coming, so they just said 3 minutes to go until the start. And then some of the Russian guys who were starting early on hadn't realised if Niskanen and the Norwegians weren't coming either. So their start times came up and they hadn't realised. And they were like going out the start with no poles on, and it was absolute chaos. But for me, the race was a lot better than the day before. I managed to move up quite a few places, had one of the best, I think I had fourth best time of the day. So it still wasn't a great race, but it was definitely an improvement.
Next 4 weeks, Andrew, now the racing season started. Next 4 weeks, just maybe give us overview like you usually do for us. What's the structure for next 4 weeks?
Yeah, so I'm racing World Cup in Lillehammer this coming weekend. The weekend after that, we are going to Davos for another World Cup. And then I've got 2 weeks after that to prepare for the Tour de Ski. There's a sprint race the week after Davos in Dresden, but I'm too old and slow to do sprints, so I'm skipping that to prepare for the Tour. So this week, the plan is to do a sort of medium sort of training week. I'm going to train a little bit more than I normally would do into some races because I feel like I felt like last week racing, I didn't missing a little bit of my base, a little bit of on snow time. So I'm going to do a little bit more training than I normally would. Not a huge amount, probably just under 20 hours in total this week, just to get a little bit more on snow time, get that ski feeling back. Doing one interval session is the plan, and then race prep on Friday, the day before the distance race. So apart from that, just some easy skis with trying to do a little bit of speed work, cornering on every session just to get the ski feeling back. Interval session I did today was 15 minutes of threshold just to get skiing technically well, get my body warmed up, and then 7 times 3-4 minutes. I had the sort of standard loop I was doing, and it was meant to be fairly short, super hard, high lactate, just to practice high speed and that sort of race-like feeling, trying to keep skiing technically well while you've got a lot of lactate and you're suffering a little bit. So that was planned today. Next week, the plan is I'm actually going to be staying at home. Usually what we do is we go straight from Lillehammer to Davos because Davos is at 1,600 meters, so it's good to acclimatize. But I have never tried traveling straight up to a race altitude because often people find their performance first day at altitude isn't so bad, and then it sort of goes downhill for a couple of days after that until you start getting acclimatized. And so I decided this year I'm going to experiment a little bit and travel out the day before the race and then go straight to the race. So I'm just going to be home next week, and because I'm going to be at home, it means I can do a little bit more volume and not need to be so careful about acclimatizing altitude. So I'm going to do again a little bit more training than I normally would do if I was going to be peaking for a specific race, but try and keep 15 or like just under 20 hours of training and then straight up to altitude and go super fast on the race. After that, it's all about preparation for the Tour de Ski. And I'm going to be staying at altitude in the Engadin Valley in Switzerland for that. So I've got 2 weeks altitude to get ready for the Tour because the Tour starts at altitude, so it's good to be acclimatized to that. So then it's just going to be easy first week, 2 low-level threshold intervals, just easing into altitude. And then the week before the tour, I'm going to drop my volume right down, have a couple of really hard short interval sessions, 2-3 minute type stuff. So 6 times 3 minutes, 8 times 2 minutes. I think 2 sessions like that, and low volume the last week before Tour de Ski, just to fine tune my form. So that is my general plan for the next 4 weeks.
Cool. All right. So now maybe some race specific questions, Andrew. So with that frigid temperatures you had last week, I mean, do you do any different warm up prior the races in that cold temperatures, or just normal? Like
I pretty much just do normal, but make sure I just have a ton of clothes on, because the important thing with a warm up is that you're actually getting warm, you're getting the blood pumping. So if you've not got enough clothes on, you're just getting cold from being outside. It's not all that constructive. So I just absolutely layer up, make sure I'm getting super warm. I didn't think it was actually that bad in Finland at the weekend. It's pretty dry cold there, so I didn't feel it. Like my lungs were, sometimes if it's cold, I like really feel it, like when you breathe it's a bit like so then for the warm up I might put on a mask just to warm up the air a little bit, so it's a little bit more comfortable on the lungs. But apart from that, just do pretty much same as normal.
Jump in, anyone?
Yeah, I've got a quick question. I think you've mentioned in the past kind of like how you change up your strength training over time, kind of as the season progresses. What are you doing for strength training at this point of the season, if you're doing any at all?
Good question. So now I'm on a sort of maintenance. So now it's a sort of combination between maintaining strength, but also using it as the prep for priming muscles for races. So it's kind of finding the balance there. So I just came back from the gym now. And what I did in the gym today was start off a few dynamic warm-ups, things like that. And then I started off with some 3 different plyometric exercises, fairly low reps. So I was doing some like calf pogos, get a bit of explosive calf work, and it's also good for my Achilles because I've struggled a little bit with some Achilles issues and I had to have an operation on them last year. Then I did some like split jump plyos, 3 sets of 6. Yeah, 3 sets of 6. Then I did some like skater hops. So it's 3 plyo lower body exercises. Then I went on to some loaded squat jumps with just like 4 kilos. And so those are all sort of like priming exercises. And then I went over to some heavier stuff to sort of try and do the maintenance work. So then I did squats, pull-ups, and Romanian deadlifts and bench press. So just some basic exercises, fairly heavy load, but just 3 sets of 3. So that's sort of to maintain the strength, but not fatigue myself before the weekend with the races coming up. And I finished off with a little bit of Achilles rehab or prehab, and a few different core exercises. So that's the sort of thing. A little bit of plyometric, explosive, and then fairly heavy strength exercises, but low reps just to maintain.
Awesome, thanks.
No worries.
Okay, we'll have a question in the chat.
Do I vary the order of strength work, i.e. before and or after a ski or roller ski session? There's been a wee bit of research around strength training that shows that the most beneficial way of doing it is if you're doing an endurance session and a strength session, that you do the endurance session in the morning, strength in the afternoon. So I pretty much always do it that way. This year I've been trying something new with me and my nutritionist have made a plan for trying to get strong and get the neuromuscular benefits of strength without getting any hypertrophy, so not building any muscle. So then this year, what I've been doing is I've been doing S&C, and then straight after my strength, I'll do 20, 30 minutes of endurance work. So jump on the ski erg or on the treadmill, just because the endurance work you do afterwards blunts the hypertrophy response you get from the strength training. So that's the new thing I'll be doing this year, which may not be beneficial for increasing strength as much as I could do, but for body composition, hopefully it's good. I hope that answered the question vaguely. Any advice for coming into the season with an overuse injury? I am not the greatest physio ever, but my advice, or I've had both, or I felt like my pec injury that I had early in the year, I had to get shoulder surgery on because ripped off the pec. And I felt like that went super well. And I think it's, unfortunately, just got to be patient and be sensible. There's plenty of, I think sometimes it can almost be beneficial having to train slightly different than you normally would do. There's a under 23 skier in Norway who had a massive roller ski crash earlier in the year. And he had to do, I can't remember what injury he got, but he couldn't roller ski for most of the summer. And he was doing like swimming and aqua jogging and stuff like that, I think. And he came to Beitostølen, the first race of the season in Norway, and he was on the podium. And he'd not been particularly, or at senior level, he hadn't been close to that level before. And so just like by doing this alternative training, he had still managed to get better as a skier. So I think having an injury doesn't have to be the end of the world. Just trying to think of it like that would be my advice.